Trustees on Monday, October the 21st, 2024 at 5:31 p.m. And on behalf of each of us, all the trustees here today, and Dr. O'Brien, I welcome each of you that are present with us this evening, and thank you for coming. Mr. Campisi.
Madam President.
How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Was the meeting properly posted?
The meeting was properly posted.
And do we have a quorum?
We have a quorum of 6 members present.
Great.
Hold up. I think y'all been practicing.
No, it's on the fly, isn't it?
Okay.
I have a cheat.
To be official. We went to Board Officer Institute.
That part. Okay, Noemi. Now we move to number 2, citizens participation. Right here. Okay. Hey, Noemi.
Dr. Price, will you ensure that the microphone's working?
Test 1.
Myself is moved. Oh, shoot. Turn it all back. November 200, yeah. Wasn't on down here, yeah, so I couldn't find it. Agenda.
No, not that one.
No, we can't use today's, it's not on there.
No, you want that one, you want citizen. Right there, yeah.
Thank you. All right, sorry you guys, a little technical difficulty. Okay, we're at the part of our citizens participation. Citizen participation is the time that the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board shall permit public comments, but because it's special, I'm off. Thank you. Okay, what was that? Okay. The board shall permit public comments regardless of whether the topic is an item on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. General public comments is limited to no more than 30 minutes per meeting. At all other board meetings, public comments shall be limited to open session items on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited to presentation to a minimum of 3 minutes, and that he or she respect confidentiality, concerns, refrain from attacking the personal character of any individual student, staff member, or board member in addressing the concerns. Pursuant to state law and board policy, be legal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or discussion on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda for future meetings. And those that we have to speak, we just have one tonight. Okay. We just have one, Mr. Chuck Cruz.
Yes, sir.
Come on up to the podium. And Mr.
That's Preston, it's green. You'll be live.
Your 3 minutes will begin when you start talking.
Howdy, board. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. This special meeting of the Goose Creek ISD board, I understand the agenda for tonight is to discuss a rate increase, and I am here to speak in favor of that. I am the Democratic nominee for Texas House 128. I am running against Briscoe Cain, the current incumbent, and Briscoe Cain is personally responsible for the lack of funding. He has voted against increases to funding for this school district and every school district in Texas, and the rates increases that y'all are considering tonight are being considered precisely because this school district and most school districts in Texas are underfunded by the Republican Party of Texas. The Republican Party of Texas is actively trying to destroy public education, and I am here to fight against it and to speak in favor. I understand that the reason these tax increases are being considered is because y'all are not being funded properly, and you have two choices when you do not get the state funding that you need. You either cut services or benefits, or you increase taxes. You have chosen not to decrease services, not to decrease benefits, and you are here to consider increasing taxes because the state is failing to meet their obligations of providing a fair and equitable public education system for all the citizens of Texas. I support your initiative to increase taxes only because the state of Texas, and specifically Representative Cain, have chosen to undermine public education in the state of Texas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carew. Okay. We'll move now to action items.
All right,
And
Madam
Dr.
President,
O'Brien?
thank you. The action items will start off this evening with the consideration of approval of health insurance and supplemental services and related actions. We're going to have a presentation. It's a follow-up presentation that will provide a little bit more information to you regarding the options that have been considered over the last 2 or 3 months that the executive administrative team has been investigating, and they're here to present to you tonight a recommendation for these services. Good evening and welcome. We'll let you introduce yourselves as you go about your presentation this evening.
Okay, I'll start us off. Good evening, everyone. We'll go through introductions here in just a second. I did want to just give a quick introduction. We're here to present our recommended insurance plan for the district following the results from our recent RFP process. As a reminder, we have faced considerable challenges with our current insurance provider, which resulted in a budget shortfall for the district. It became evident to us starting in early August that our existing plan was inadequately underfunded, underwritten, leading to excessive expenses. And so at the last board meeting, approval was granted for Goose Creek administration to work with Gallagher to guide our decision-making process and plan selection. I would personally like to acknowledge Ellen Akers, also Bridget Clark and Leanna Dixon. They gave up part of their fall break to participate in 5 meetings so that we could come to the right decision and also come up with some solutions for Goose Creek. So I want to thank them for their time during their break. This decision carries significant weight for many of our employees, for many of our families, including my own family. And so we are making this recommendation with great care. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Akers to provide more details and also to introduce our representative from Gallagher. And so I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Dr. Bollinger. Good evening. Again, thank you so much for having this special session on this important topic. Again, I think it just shows your dedication and commitment to the employees and students of our district. And so it is very much appreciated that you took your time to be here. I am delighted to introduce to you our representatives from Gallagher. There are only 2 here, but we had an entire team working on this for us at Gallagher, diligently putting out an RFP process that was unbiased, that would give us a true view of the market and what was available and the best plan we could present to you for our employees. So I'd like to introduce Betty Gwynn, who will be speaking to you on some of the financial findings tonight. And Brandon DeBar is also from Gallagher and is here with us tonight also. So they'll be available to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. We have a brief but very thorough, comprehensive presentation of the findings of our RFP process and our recommendations as we move forward. first page, thank you very much. On the first page that we have here, when we are reviewing the overall plan costs, I'm going to walk through some of these as a line-by-line issue, and then I'm going to summarize the call-outs in the green boxes and red boxes and where that goes from here. So the first one is Cigna Allegiance, and that is your current plan that you have today. And then as we put out the RFP, the respondents to the RFP, any willing provider was open and able to bid on this, and the respondents were for the medical Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, and United Healthcare, that's UHC. On the left-hand side, your total medical plan cost, that is for the medical claims only. As a self-funded plan, it's broken down by claims, administrative fees, the stop-loss premiums, your prescription drug cost, any additional pharmacy rebates that come to the plan as well, to show you what a net overall cost of the plan is. So current plan is running at about $27.6 million. And then what we do is we move over and we show what Aetna, when they bid on it, it was $30.8 million. Blue Cross, as I'm moving to the right, is $25.29 million. And UHC was at $30.17 million. So, and again, where you see where the biggest difference is, the biggest differential is in that very top, the top line, and that is about claims. That is because each one of these providers, they negotiate discounts with all of the healthcare providers that are out there, and what we do is we analyze as a self-funded plan who has the greatest discounts that are out there in the marketplace that will benefit your plan while still providing a broad network of providers. It will still provide you with the hospital systems that your employees use so that there will not be disruption in care. As you can see in this, Blue Cross, it's in the green box, is the winner when it comes to the financial plans. And we're going to go into more details of the financials on the next page. Thank you. So this next shows about the overall plan cost, and we break it down. It's very common for us to look at plan cost on what we call a per employee per month basis, a PEPM. And what that does is it wraps it up into a much more consolidated or aggregated number when we're breaking down what those costs are and how then we are going to budget for this plan. Currently, the total plan costs are $1,103 per employee per month. And then we move over across the right, and you're going to see where that comparison is. Then we look at the employee contributions. As you know, your employees are paying a portion of the cost, and what the employees don't pay, then that's what the district pays. And that's where we then are showing what the total employee contribution, which is the employees plus Goose Creek. The employee contributions, as you can see, on average are about $331 per employee per month. And then the district funding contributions is $310. As you can see, the total plan cost is $1,103. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail that cost of the $310 is not adequate to fund, and therefore there had to be, as you know, some general funds that took place to help and keep the plan up and running so that the claims could be funded as well. So then as we move across to the right, it's that same scenario where we look at that Blue Cross. Remember, we talked about those claims discounts, and then this is the value of those discounts where we break it down on a per employee per month basis and how that then impacts the plan. All right, the aggregated cost, I'm going to go down. That is the total plan when we look at it on an aggregate. Again, we talked about the 27.5 is your current plan cost. Then we move over to the Blue Cross side where it's 25.297 million on the plan, the annual cost. What the employees plus Goose Creek are contributing, and then the additional district funding, that $9.2 million. That's that additional funding that had to be required of the plan to keep it running. That was above and beyond what was originally budgeted for that amount. We also put as part of the bid out, yes, thank you, for COBRA administration. That is a requirement of the plan. Anytime an employee is terminated from the plan, they have to be offered to continue the plan through COBRA, and this is the cost. You have a third party that administers the COBRA, and this is the cost of that. We had two providers that bid on it. It was Ameriflex and Task is the provider on that. and this is the cost. While we understand that task is a slightly bit more expensive, they are overall a better provider when it comes to their overall performance of administering that very important benefit of COBRA. On the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about, that plan cost we were looking at earlier was status quo, assuming there are no plan changes. When I talk about a plan change, what I'm referring to is an increase in a deductible or a change in a copay. Those are the plan change considerations that we now talk about. The plan is going to be what it is as far as costs are. Then there's levers that we can use to sort of control those cost measures and bring those overall plan costs down. And these are some of the levers that we were looking at in order to simplify the plan design a little bit. And when I talk about simplifying the plan design, currently you have a pharmacy deductible on your plan. We want to remove that pharmacy deductible so that employees now don't have to satisfy a pharmacy deductible, and the financial impact to removing that deductible is minimal. And then you'll see why. Now, the next one, it says introduce copays for generics. Currently, generics are free for employees. And when we compare benchmark, look at your plan compared to other districts, having a free copay for generics is very uncommon, right? So we wanted to align that with what your other neighboring school districts are doing, and now employees will pay. They don't have to meet that pharmacy deductible, but we are recommending a $15 copay for generic drugs. Also, it is the lesser of the cost of the drug or the $15 copay. Sometimes you can get a really low-cost drug, and it may only be $6. They're not going to pay $15. They're only going to pay $6 or what the actual cost of that drug is. Some other plan design changes, and we'll go into those in more detail, that we are proposing is also going to bring some savings to the plan. And it's a range of 1.3 to 1.7 of the estimated savings to the overall plan cost. There's a very aggressive plan change that I'm going to show you about what it looks like to bring the plan cost so that it's flat, so that there is no additional money that's needed to fund. But those plan changes are extremely aggressive and would be very noisy for your employee population, how they would potentially be impacted. The ones that are in the green boxes are the ones that we are recommending. The other one is increasing the employee contributions to the plan, what they pay out of their paycheck, approximately 10%. And you'll see when we talk about that, that is very close in alignment when we looked at what the increases are under the TRS plans. In your region, the TRS plans went up about 9 to 10% as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. The next one I'm going to look at is about the plan designs, and I briefly talked about it. This is what your plan designs look like today. These are your deductibles, your coinsurance, and your copays that are out here in your plan design if there were no changes made. And we did a lot of exercises and a lot of plan design modeling, our actuaries did, to determine what was competitive and what then would also bring us savings without having a significant impact to the employees. So this is status quo. And then we're going to go on to the next pages and we're going to talk about what it would look like. That next slide, when we talk about moving to currently you offer 3 plans. If we were to move to a dual option plan where there's only 2 options, and we would increase deductibles, increase out-of-pockets across the board, that is what it would take to bring the plan cost down to a no increase. But again, this is not what we're recommending because it would be such a financial impact to the employees. It's not something that we would recommend that they could bear these increases at all. And we'll show you then what that would look like moving forward with the recommended plan design changes. In addition to what the plan designs look like, what would it take for the contributions? What would we have to do to the employees' contributions to make those costs flat with no increases to the district funding? And it would be significant. On this slide here where we're looking at the contributions, currently on the left-hand side, this is what the employees are paying today for the coverages, as you can see. If we go to the right, if we were going to bring these costs down so that they're flat, we would have to increase the employee-only contribution, for example, on that enhanced plan from $303 up to $452 a month. for the employee-only coverage, which is an increase exactly of $145. As you can see going down, some of these increases, look at that family coverage tier. Currently, it's $1,571. If we were going to bring it so that there were no additional monies paid by the district, it would be an additional $772 additional paid by these people that have family coverage, which we know is not an affordable or sustainable for our teachers. On the next slide, this is what we are proposing for the costs as we move forward with these plans. Currently, under your Allegiance plan, you can see we talked about the per employee per month. These numbers you're going to see are looking very familiar. The aggregate cost of $27.6 million with the additional district subsidy of $11.5 million on top of what you're already paying. All right? If we move over to the right, where Blue Cross, if we were to make no plan design changes, this is what the additional subsidy would look like, $9.2 million, and on the bottom line that's bolded. And if we were to go to that really aggressive dual option plan, where we would have significant increases, that's what it would then look like for the district to be a zero cost increase. We wanted to show you this so that you can really see the true cost of your plan and what it would look like in order to bring that flat, to the district with no additional increases. And you can see it's very aggressive plan changes that are simply not sustainable for your population. On the next slide, we're going to talk about what our proposed recommended plan design changes are. And there are some plan design changes. We are recommending, when we go with Blue Cross, to go again with 3 plan design options that are out here. A high deductible health plan that says HD plan with the Blue Choice PPO network, which is the broadest network that's out there with respect to providers. And I want you to note that Baytown Methodist is on all of these networks, which we know is a very important provider out here to your population. So we wanted to make sure there was no disruption there. Under this plan design, you'll see we are increasing the calendar year deductible. When it shows red, that means it's an increase or a change to the benefit plan, which is going to cost the employees a little bit money. If it's green, it's better than your current plan design. All right? So on this one, on the high deductible health plan, it's a $3,500 deductible for individuals, $7,000 for families, but the out-of-pocket is going down to $6,500 for the single and $13,000 for the family. As we move to the right, the standard plan and the next one, the enhanced plan, those are both the Blue Essentials network, which is an HMO type of network where your employees will be electing a gatekeeper or a primary care physician, which is very important to have someone who's managing their care. That is of the utmost importance with managing costs as well. Under this Blue Essentials plan, it's a $4,000 deductible for single, $8,000 for family. But what's good about this is employees can still access a physician through an office visit copay of $35 for a primary care and $70 for a specialist, and they don't have to meet the deductible. So that deductible will not impede them seeing a doctor. They're still going to be able to access that care. The same thing, now this plan it's reimbursed at 20% after deductible, which is an improvement over your current plan. And then down here at the bottom where you see annual prescriptions, it used to be free generics. Now we are recommending it's a $15 copay for generic drugs. You don't have to meet the deductible for generic drugs. Again, they used to have pharmacy deductible, but on your preferred brand, which is that second tier, and non-preferred brand, you do have to meet the deductible, and it's integrated with the medical plan, part of that overall deductible. And then specialty drugs, which are those very high-cost drugs that you'll see for very complex medical conditions. There's a $250 copay for those types of drugs. The average cost of those drugs is about $1,000 to $1,200 a month. So the employee will be sharing in those costs as well, which is an improvement over your current plan. And then we go again to the right, the Blue Essentials, as you'll see, it is a lower deductible than on the standard plan. It's a $2,000 deductible for an individual, $5,500 out of pocket, which is lower than is today. Once the employee hits that out of pocket, then everything else is paid at 100%. So that's the maximum cost they would have to pay. And then as we go on down, you'll see again that's that $15 copay for generic drugs. And then tiers preferred and non-preferred are improvements. It's a $35 copay or $55 copay. And then again, there are specialty drugs as well that are a $200 copay there. The next page, what we're showing here is our recommendations on increasing the employee contributions 10%. We did also model out a 5% increase, but we believe that making a 10% increase to the employee contributions is more in line with what we see in the market and with you're comparing you to other districts, as well as the TRS plans out there that we mentioned are going up approximately 9% in your region. So this will show on this one about how much the employee contributions are currently, and then what we are proposing and what that monthly change is. For example, on that current plan, where it's currently $303, it would go up to $333.30, or an additional $30 per month is what that increase would be. And then you go on down by tier, employee only, employee spouse, employee child or children, and employee and family. You can see what those increases would potentially be. Again, we wanted to make these modest plan design changes to help, again, offset what the overall plan costs are to help us manage these overall costs. The next slide is slide 12. And this is where we're going to talk about overall the per employee per month. As I talked about earlier, that's sort of how we look at that, the plan design cost. And we're going to go all the way over to the right. And we're going to look to see with the Blue Cross plans and the proposed plan design changes with the increase of 10% to the employee contribution, these are the costs. And then this at the very bottom, when you see that $6.8 million, that's what the additional district subsidy would be from the current cost. Currently, it's at $11.5 million is what the district subsidy is. With these plan design changes and with these costs, it would be an additional $6.8 million that is required as a contribution. The only other thing I'd like to point out in here, I think this is a nice slide also where it shows, you know, one of the things that we find very interesting is to look at what other districts are funding. Now, it should be known that it is not an uncommon practice for districts to get additional funding from general funds, all right? And you can sort of see where you see the PEPM, the per employee per month contribution for each district. It's very interesting to see the districts that fund a lot, and they probably pull a lot less from general funds, if anything at all. And then you can see the others where they fund less. That is not what they're paying. They're paying a lot more than that because they're having to pull from general funds to help balance the medical plan cost. If there's that first footnote at the bottom, I'd like to make a call out to that. You know, currently the district funds $310 per employee. If the district were to fund totally, instead of pulling from general funds and just to earmark and fund for that district cost for the medical plan, the district, instead of funding $310, you would have to fund $678. That's a significant change. One of the things that I would like to call out is that, and I think that's all, we don't need to do the rest of them, I don't think, do you? Yeah. Is that one of the things that we want to make sure that you understand is that you can't just buy a medical plan and sit back and cross your fingers and hope that it runs well. That's not how it works. Even if it's fully insured, we're in a self-insured environment, but even in a fully insured environment, we as a team have to be aggressively managing the benefit plan cost on a monthly basis, ongoing. We have to know where every penny, every dollar is going, where people are going, how they're utilizing healthcare. An example might be ER utilization. I have met with teachers and educators before, and I said, what are you doing after school today? Well, I'm going to plan to go to the ER. Who plans to go to the ER? That's why we want them to have relationships with a primary care physician, because if you have an emergency, we want them to go to the appropriate place for an emergency. Absolutely. But that should not be their first point of contact for primary care. The Blue Cross plans and everyone else is also going to have lots of management tools that are out there. A cost finder, they can see exactly how much it costs and where to go to get an MRI. They will know exactly where to go to find the lowest cost drugs that are out there. That's why it's really important that we provide ongoing education and we are committed to managing these plan costs.
Do you have any questions?
I'd like to scroll back to page 12. I too would like to thank Gallagher for helping guide us through the process. As Dr. Bollinger alluded to over the break, 5 of our employees met up with several of your employees and hashed through this. But I think page 12 is the one that is the actual slide that is being proposed. The Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas proposed plans. That's ultimately what's being recommended tonight. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that. It appears to be the most cost effective for us as a school district. It does include an increase, but that increase, as shown on a previous slide, was about the average for the whole state on insurance at 9%. This is a 10%, of course, but it's keeping pace with the state's increases in medical coverage. And it moves us to a much better place than we have been in. So,
I have a quick question. And that's the same, stay on the same page here. When we're looking at 5% and 10%, did we look at a number in between that we didn't go anywhere between that? Because I heard 9 with some, and then I saw some other percentages. So I'm just wondering if we had looked at any other percentages that would maybe be on the side of the employee a little bit more. If we did play with a percentage between 9 and 8% or something like that. Or this was kind of where we saw that was best fit from?
We were really looking for best fit in terms of not raising premiums too much and having the total cost of the plan savings that we could. So any 6, 7, 8, or 9 would have fallen between the 7.3 and the 6.8 million. It wouldn't make that much difference. For the 10%, I think really can make a big difference in our funding for us.
Who will be the prescription provider? I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, but my prescription provider is Express Scripts.
This is what we call carved in with Prime Therapeutics, is the PBM, or the Pharmacy Benefit Manager.
All right, thank you.
And it falls under the Blue Cross umbrella.
Sure.
Our plan is to, because we were on such a very short timeline, we only looked at integrated pharmacy programs that are part of it. Our plan is to next year when we have more time, to send the pharmacy out for a full RFP so that then we can look at carve-out opportunities, whether it's with Express Scripts, Optum, CVS, all those different options, which is going to give us a lot more leverage when we market that to a broader marketplace.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the important things we were looking at in selecting a carrier is it's very disruptive when you have to change doctors and you change your medical plans. So we were looking at the carrier that we felt like would be sustainable for us for the next several years. And next year we hope to offer even more plan options and designs. But for now, we just wanted to level set and offer a plan that was comparable to what we had and better.
Any other questions from the board? Then administration would bring to the board action item 3A, consideration of approval of health insurance and supplemental services and related actions as presented to you this evening by Gallagher and the administrative team.
Thank you. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
And second?
I second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve. So do we have any further discussion? Sorry, Noemi, we have a motion from Mr. Clem. So you have the names in the agenda and a second by Mr. Martinez. Okay, no discussion. There will be no further discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. So it's 6-4. So all in favor. No more. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great presentation, you guys. Appreciate it.
Madam President, the next item is an action item 3B, And items 3B and 3C were previously presented to the board at the last school board meeting. So there's no presentation required for them. Since you've already seen the presentation, it's simply the adopting of the tax rate as presented to us by the chief appraisers of Chambers County and Harris County. Would be item 3B, and then 3C would be approval of the resolution to adopt the ad valorem tax rate for the fiscal year 2024 and 2025. Bridget's here to answer any questions you might have, but the first proposal is to approve action item 3B, the resolution adopting an order approving the property tax rolls, which is just the data that was presented to us by the appraisers for you included in your packet tonight.
I move to approve the tax roll certification from Chambers and Harris County as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Mr. Clem and a second from Ms. Guy to approve the item as presented. Any discussion?
I have one question. Ms. Clark, how do these numbers compare to the 2023 data for Harris County and Chambers County?
Yes, sir. My data here. So year over year, we had an increase of about 1.44 billion.
1.4 billion?
Correct.
And that's over both counties?
That's combined, both counties, yes. Actually, Chambers had the largest increase, believe it or not, because of all the expansion in their warehousing district. So their increase was larger than Harris.
Any other questions?
Okay. There be no further discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in favor, no opposed. And the motion carries. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bridget.
The next action item is 3C, consideration of approval of resolution adopting the ad valorem tax rate for the fiscal year 24 and 25. And again, that was presented at our last school board meeting, but Bridget's here to answer any questions you might have for that as well.
Okay, do I have a motion on the agenda item that was presented on 3C, consideration of approval of resolution of adopting the ad valorem tax rate for the fiscal year 24-25?
I move that the total property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 1.0825, which is effectively a 3.65% increase in the tax rate.
Second?
Do I have a second? Okay, motion by Ms. Guy and second by Mr. Clem. Now, do we have any discussion at this time?
I do.
I yield to the floor to you, Mr. Campisi.
Okay. I saw Mr. Renteria going as well. I have concerns about moving forward on this tax rate because it is a tax rate increase. And the reason why I asked Ms. Clark a minute ago is the tax values of our property have increased $1.4 billion. The climate of our constituency, we're not respected when it comes to the tax rate. And there's no secret we're going to be going back to our taxpayers in the next year or two, whatever, to ask them for a bond increase. In the last meeting, I asked what this equates to, and I think, Ms. Clark, you said it was about a $5 million difference.
Yes, sir.
And I think there was some confusion on the way that was answered. A lot of my constituents came to me and asked about that. But ultimately, if we were to go with the NNR rate, which is roughly 3-point-something cents lower, we'd be collecting the same amount that we collected last year, correct? That's the no new revenue rate, correct?
Yes, that's what the no new revenue rate calculates. Just what tax rate would it take to generate the same amount of taxes from last year?
Right. So,
yes.
So if we go with this tax rate, we're actually increasing it by $5 million. Everything that we talked about in budget plans last year, which was grim and dark, to say in the best light, we prepared for that number. We didn't prepare for $5 million more. And as we already know, we had to offset about $5 million to cover insurance costs, which we really didn't have a choice for. I'm at a point where I don't feel like I could back this rate on top of that. I see Mr. Renteria shaking his head. I feel like this is an opportunity to tell our taxpayers, we hear you, we listen to you. I think Goose Creek is prepared to deal with this moving forward. Of course, what the state's going to do, we don't know yet. Well, we can cross our fingers and hope and pray that they do the right thing. But I have concerns about collecting more now in the climate we're in. And at this point, I'll just go ahead and yield right there because I know other people want to talk, but I'll yield my time and may request to have some time back in a few moments.
May I just
Yes, please.
respond a bit to that, if I may? So we did build the budget with the $5.4 million is what it'll equate to be if we were to adopt the no new revenue tax rate. So we did build that in. So if we were to adopt the no new revenue tax rate, we would have a decrease to revenue immediately of $5.4 million.
Right.
You just saw that we are going to have to pitch in an additional $6.8 million for the healthcare proposal that you all just approved. So that would equate to 11.4, or excuse me, almost $12 million that we would be in the hole, the 5.4 plus the 6.8. So that'd be about $12 million that we would be in the hole from what we had planned when we adopted the budget, if that makes sense. And also, when you're talking about the no new revenue tax rate, it does not take into account your enrollment or your demographics. So, for example, we've had an explosion in special ed. We've had over 2,000 additional special ed students that we've added. And we're trying to run a 2024-25 budget with 2019 dollars, and it's very expensive to serve that population of students, and we certainly serve them proudly and to the best of our ability. But if we put ourselves in a position where we are going to have to start out an additional $12 million down, just because of the situation with the health care, and then, if we were to adopt this no new revenue tax rate, we would have to immediately start making reductions to accommodate for that. So just want the board to be aware of that.
Well, and to your point of when the budget was proposed, it was at the 108 rate. So
yes, sir.
It wasn't at the new rate. It was at the 108 rate that we proposed this budget. And what that equates to, the $5 million equates to, if we want to go back to our budget reduction plans over the last 2 years, equates to 65 positions we'd have to eliminate to make the difference up with that $5 million.
Right.
But in all fairness, when we talk about that 108 a year ago, that did not include $1.4 billion in increased property value.
It had estimates in there of, we already estimated the increases whenever we adopted the budget in
you have to adopt
June.
the budget before you get the tax roll,
right.
so you have to estimate an increase,
yeah.
and it's generally, we know 1 to 2, 3%. We're going to at the very least, flex the estimate up from the previous year.
Right. So we do try to build some of that in there. It's not perfect because we don't have certified roll until July and August with Harris County, but we have to do our best to put estimates in until we actually adopt the tax rate. So.
Well, we're at a tough time where we're crunching numbers and we're estimating, but the taxpayers are getting hit hard, not just from us, but Harris County just raised 8%, and here we go, another $5 million. I don't think I can justify voting for this raise. I understand we'll go in the hole. But right now, with inflation the way it is, people can't afford. I've had constituents call me and tell me to vote, please vote against this. Said people are just, they're taxing us out of house and home. So, I'll be voting against this.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm always trying to look in the middle, okay? Now, if we look at this, where could we be in the middle of this that we could look at of any increase or decrease of that number that we're looking at, the 3.65? Do we have anything else that we can look at, or just hypothetically? I'm not asking you to come up with no magic numbers because that takes a whole nother session.
It would, if you adopt above the no new revenue tax rate, it's still going to require a supermajority vote, which is going to require 5 votes. And if you went somewhere in the middle, you would probably lose, let's say instead of almost 4 cents, you went to maybe like 2 cents, you're going to have a loss of like 2.7 million instead of the 5.4, but you know, it's still going to require a supermajority.
That will as well. Yeah, but it would be doable if we look at something in that regard too.
It would. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So how does this affect or work in with the foundation funding, copper pennies, golden pennies? What else do we lose if we do no new funding?
Well, we're just losing revenue. I mean, we're losing, you know, if we adopt the no new revenue tax rate, we're going to lose 5.4 million in revenue. So that means we're going to have to cut positions, services, programs, something to fill the void.
What about
positions, services, everything cut immediately?
Well, we're going to
because we're going to be millions of dollars short on our budget. So as hard as we've worked to not have to lay people off, what I'm hearing is if we don't, then people could potentially.
We would have to have a reduction in force one way or the other. We have used the attrition model as it has worked out for our budget planning in the spring to be adopted July 1st, knowing that we're going to be $5.4 million short simply by not adopting the rate as it's presented will put us to have to doing those reductions sooner than the typical adoption time in July. So any positions of those 60, 65, 66 positions estimated with this shortfall would have to be, any position that became vacant would not be filled this spring. So we would have to start analyzing what programs to cut versus continuing to go into a fund balance that we've already dipped into for insurance purposes, for capital improvement projects and things of that nature. So while we've always boasted a very healthy fund balance in the past, it's when you begin to pass up opportunities for revenue, you're going to the voter eventually for a bond to just build buildings that you have to have for the new students that are coming in. But we will have, it's like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul by having a reduction in force one way or the other, and then having to come back and because of student enrollment increases potentially, having to hire them back at a later date once that revenue comes in. And to your point, Mr. Campisi, we can be hopeful. This legislative session, we may receive funding, but for the last 2 legislative sessions, we've not received an increase from our Texas legislators. And there doesn't seem to be an effort at that point for them to increase funding. At this point, there's been no signs or no clues for us. And we're advocating, we're coalescing with other superintendents across our district, across our region, to try to find out if there will be funding. Although we know at this point in time, based upon preliminary comments and statements, is that the voucher bill will likely pass. But there has been no comments publicly made by our elected officials that there will be any additional funding for public schools. So we can't bank on that or count on that in the future. This is a point that we can count on by simply adopting this resolution tonight.
Right, and I would agree with that statement that we can't count on the state to do the right thing, even though it's our money and we send it to them, and they only give us a portion of it back. And like Ms. Baratin said, I'm open to a compromise somewhere in the middle, but I feel we have to give something back and show our constituents that, hey, we hear you loud and clear. I'm personally not for supporting the full amount, but I'm not dead set on N&R either. It's
So just to reiterate, and for everyone, just to make sure you understand, so we adopted like a $1.8 million deficit with the health plan, and this, if we adopt the no new revenue tax rate, now we've turned a $1.8 million deficit into a $14 million deficit when we start budget conversations. Also, I would add that since 2018, we've decreased the tax rate every single year, decreasing it almost 35 cents or 24.4% since 2018. And this is the first year we're just asking to hold the tax rate steady and not actually decrease it. So,
will this be our compressed tax rate, or will it be compressed further after we set the rate?
No, this will be the final tax rate. Yes, sir, for this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what happens if we don't have a supermajority?
You can't. You have to have a supermajority to pass anything higher than the no new revenue tax rate. The only other option would be to pull it and come back for another special and try again. And we'd have to do it we'd have to do it, I'll have to look at the exact dates, but we have to do it might be by next week, early next week, it would have to be done.
Can't come back.
Yeah.
Ms. Clark, would you state that again, what you just said? We've decreased our tax rate since 2018 every single year, and this is the year we're not asking to decrease it, but to keep it the same.
Yes,
which
sir.
Ultimately, because the values have gone up, ends up being a 4% tax increase technically, but it is leaving the tax rate on the taxpayers exactly where it was last year.
Yes, sir. We went from 1.43189 in 2018 to 1.0825 in 2023, and we're asking for the same 1.0825 for this year to adopt.
So we reduced them by over 30 cents.
Yes, sir. Almost 35 cents, about 24.4%.
And part of that was compression. I want to give credit where credit's due to our legislators who
Absolutely.
compressed. And about half of that would be attributed to them. And the other half would be contributed to our Board of Trustees in their efforts to keep our tax rate as low as it possibly can be and still fund the education that we're providing to this community.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We have, in 2016, I believe, we went to the voters and asked for a tax ratification. And that's where we asked the voters to increase the taxes to the amount of the previous year. This is a new situation where it's the no new rate, where there's no requirement to go to the voters, but it is up to the board to vote in favor of this by a supermajority in place of having a ratification election going out to the public again. So it's one way just to retain the values that we presently have, to retain those fundings.
Yes, sir. It's to maximize state funding, yes. Maximize the state funding formula.
If I can inject, I hear the third time telling that we're just remaining, keeping the same revenues, but I'm dead set on no new revenue. So we're not going to have a supermajority. Not tonight.
Yes, sir.
Not tonight.
I guess, what do we tell the homeowner out there who we're not increasing the tax rate, but their bill's going up $500 or however much it's going up because of their value of the property?
If we adopt the no new revenue tax rate on a $200,000 home, it would save the homeowner $6 a month.
With homestead exemption and such. But a lot of the homes now...
$200,000 taxable value, should I say. $6 a month.
But the problem is those home values in the last 5 to 9 years has doubled.
But I
really
think
does.
it need to be clear that has nothing to do with the school district. It has to do with the
Right.
appraisals.
Right.
Right.
Understood, but the
that's
bottom
not
line
the
is.
issue. The issue is we're hitting the taxpayers' pocketbooks, and they're not happy with that.
I get
But
it.
that increase is due to the increased values,
Right.
not to our rates going up.
Yes.
Right.
That's I understand that.
So I guess at this point, we have to decide what we're okay with. Like, are we okay with people having to potentially lose jobs? Are we okay with a $6 a month increase in taxes?
Reducing by 65 jobs currently, but it may be more than that before the year's up. And y'all know we've worked together to present how much is the budget reduction, about 100 per year for the last 2 years. So we'll be right back in the same boat, reducing it by 75 or more.
Plus, yes, sir. Because we'll have to make up the 6.8 for the health insurance as well.
What we've worked hard the last 2 years, just to be clear, is to not cut programs. The academies that we've instituted that provide pathways for our children, for our communities, the boutique high schools, the alternative options for a student to go to school in a different setting. We work really hard to do that. So rather than cutting positions, we may have to cut programs and services that we've worked really hard to build up over the last decade. And that just may be a choice. I think you said it right, Mr. Guy. What do we value more? Retaining the tax rate as it currently is and trying to maintain what we have, or accepting the fact that we've cut as many positions as we can with the number of students that we currently serve. So we'll have to look at the next step would be cutting services or shutting down campuses or something.
And we have so many of our teachers now. Classrooms are busting at the seams. They went from 27 students to now 35 students.
So it is a choice. I mean, it's absolutely a choice to vote for or against, but there's consequences to those choices too.
I think it's important to say too that no one in this room is really responsible for the situation that our state put us in. We have a difficult and tough decision
absolutely
to make.
Yes.
And we're really backed into a corner on what do we do. With that, Ms. Clark, let's do a what if. What if we lower it, let's just say 2 cents, just hypothetically. The state doesn't come through, they don't fund us, we go ahead and we offset that $2.5 million for this year. Where are we at next year if we need to bump that tax rate back up?
You can't. This is the one time. You'd have to do the tax ratification election that I proposed that we did in 2016, and we'd be more inclined to go out for a bond to provide facilities than we would be to ask taxpayers for a kickback later into the future. So,
Right.
I wouldn't recommend that in the future. Going back to the voters to have a tax increase at a later time.
Right.
This is the time now or not at all.
Because this would be, it would be permanent. If you reduce the tax rate to the no new revenue tax rate, we'd have this $5.4 million to make up not only this year, but every year, because that tax rate would remain low because you have those enrichment pennies that it starts to affect. So.
Based upon conversation, open conversation that's occurred tonight, I think that there's a greater likelihood of the board considering approval, a supermajority approval, if we reduce the proposed amount by 50%. So
we have to vote on the motion first.
I was going to say that's just the discussion that I'm having to associate with what we've discussed so far.
Let's call the question and vote, and then move forward from there.
Do I have a motion?
The motion's made and seconded.
Made and second, okay. And we've discussed it. Oh, sorry. We have the motion, and it's been discussed. And there be no further discussion. All in favor? as presented, please raise your hand. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Okay, 4 and 2 opposed. Motion fails.
With a failed motion on the table, administration would bring back to the board for consideration of the approval of a resolution adopting the ad valorem tax rate for the fiscal year 24-25 to the amount 50% of the previously proposed amount as presented previously.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Let's be a little more clear than that. Let's put a number on it.
I would actually move for 1 penny less. That would be the 1.07. Call it out, Mr. Clem. Do you have it in front of you?
I'm getting there.
1 penny less than the current.
1.0725.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because, well, I'll discuss it afterwards.
That would be, yeah.
A 1 cent reduction.
Okay. We now have
Your motion?
That is my motion. I move for a 1 cent reduction.
I will second your motion.
Okay. The motion has been made by Mr. Campisi, second by Mr. Clem. Do we have any discussion?
I would like to go first.
Okay.
I think it's important that we throw the olive branch out to our community. We can be leaders in this and show the state that, hey, you need to step up and do what you need to do. We're not in this position, and Ms. Clark, this is nothing against you. You've done an amazing job with our finances, and I appreciate everything you do. But the reality is we have a responsibility to our community as well as our school district. And it's important that we fulfill both of those. And that's why this is a tough meeting for all of us tonight. I threw out there that I'm open to compromise. I think 1 penny is a huge compromise when you think about it in the context of where we are, the situation we're in, the bottom line numbers and what the state may or may not do, and then also what it takes to get that 1 penny back. And that's why I didn't go for the 50% reduction, Dr. O'Brien, but I really honestly feel that when we show our community, we're listening to them. And we're trying to do the right thing for our school district, number one, our community, also number one. I think when we start partnering up with our community and throw out there that we're listening to them and we're trying to do the best for everyone, I think our community is going to come through. We had one of our biggest critics come and speak at our meeting, and he said, if you need more money, tell us you need more money and tell us why. Well, let me put it on the record. We need more money. We know why, but we have an opportunity to show that we can do a reduction and give a little bit back to our community, and that's why I've made my motion, and that's why I stand by that. And I hope this board supports, and if not, we'll just keep talking. We can be here till midnight.
I have a question.
I concur, and I want to thank you for that.
What will this add to our deficit?
It will add probably around, I don't know, just around 2 million.
1.8, 1.9.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that when we go to adopt the budget next year, we really need to pay attention to what we're adopting.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. Always, yes.
If we're going to vote against it at this point, then we've really got to pay attention to what we're voting for in the earlier on in the year.
Of course.
And just to be clear, we're going to set the M&O at 0.6575 and not change INS.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Previously at 0.7575.
Correct.
Thank you all.
Can someone call out that actual number, what that would be, with a 1%, 1 cent reduction, Ms. Clark?
It's
1.0725.
What she said.
Thank you, Mr. Clem.
I just wanted to put a number with my motion.
The motion is done in second, right?
And
We're
I
on
yield.
discussion.
We're on discussion.
Right.
Any discussions?
Yeah, I guess I'm next. But, you know, I feel like, forgive me because I missed the last couple meetings for my son's wedding and I wasn't here. But I feel like it's kind of a little bit of pressure for us to, to vote on this. And I would be in favor, because of the distrust that our constituents have, to put it to them and ask them, let them decide what they want to do. I know that Randy said he didn't want to do that, but I would be in favor of that and let them decide if they want to raise taxes. So I'm just saying, I'm adamant on the no new revenue. 1 cent is it's a compromise somewhat, I guess, but I'm still adamant about no new revenue, So, if I'm the lone voter on this, so be it. But I know what the taxpayers are going through right now, and as much as I'd like to vote for this, and it's difficult to do so at this time. We've gone through the same scenario, whether it's raises for whoever, and I voted against it before, and and I think in my opinion, we need to start crunching. It's not going to get any better. Next year we're going to be doing the same thing.
Right.
But we did.
No, but we're going to do it again.
Yeah, we crunched.
Yeah, 1 cent, but we have a. I would suggest that we table the matter, and come back and figure out how we're really going to approach this before we make a vote like this during this.
Table it at the last meeting.
I know.
And we did it when we had the whole budget workshop. So, any other discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Clem? Martinez? Okay. There being no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. All opposed? 1's opposed. And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you.
Madam President, that brings us to the closed meeting portion of our agenda.
Thank you again for everything. We just appreciate your hard work on all the time. It is, and all the board members too. The board will now recess into closed session. You're supposed to help me. You still on that time. The board will now recess into closed session pursuant to one or more of the following sections of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, and 082, 083, 084, and 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. The time now is 6:40 p.m. It is 7:05, and the board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 7:05. No action was taken while the board was in closed session. Okay, Dr. O'Brien?
Yes.
I will yield to you.
Coming out of closed session, I notice our Director of Tax Services is in the room. Hello, Jennifer. Thank you for being here. I know, I just noticed you, though. It's an important night. We adopt the tax rate. You're here tonight. Thank you. Coming out of closed, we're reconvening to consider personnel. Administration would recommend that the board approve the teacher elections as presented.
I move to approve the elections as presented.
Second.
The motion has been made by Mr. Campisi, second by Mr. Renteria. Do we have any discussion? There be no further discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. So that's 6-4. No opposed. The motion carries.
And administration brings before the board for consideration one administrative election. That would be the Director of Communications, Ms. Nancy Bonds.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve Nancy Bonds, Director of Communications.
Second.
That has been motioned by Mr. Campisi and second by Mr. Renteria. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I like the way you pronounce my last name, but go ahead.
What did I say?
Renteres.
And what is it?
Renteria, whatever.
Singular, not plural.
You haven't been here in so long, I forgot. Not my fault.
Okay.
All right, anyway, order. Ms. Timms.
Order.
Need to come
Order
back
in
to
the
order.
court. Yes.
All right.
Did we?
I have a motion and a second. I'm not calling names this time. I already did. And do we have any discussion?
She's trying to get hired. Y'all laughing.
Who, me? Or you? Nancy, you sure you want this job? Please stand. Let's see you. Stand so everybody can see you. Put a face with a name. Welcome, Nancy, and good luck. You'll be hearing from me.
Let's go ahead and finish the vote before we welcome her to the position.
They ready to go. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. 6-4, no opposed. The motion has carried. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, Ms. Bonds.
Okay.
At least you pronounced your name right.
Administration rests.
Adjourn. The board, there be no further business before this board. This meeting is adjourned at 7:08 p.m. Y'all have a good week and welcome back from y'all fall break. You didn't get one?